Excellent. I guess we're now live. Well, first of all, I would like to welcome everyone who's just joining us. Today we'll be doing the live broadcast for our 20th Century Art online auction. We will be focusing on specific lots, the very first from the whole collection, and then we will be going a bit quicker with the latter lots. Just to give you a brief idea of what we'll be covering today. So essentially, we are pleased to present 20th Century Art, as the title of the sale suggests. Carefully curated selection of paintings and prints by major artists from the post-war period through the 1990s. Some of the movements covered in the sale range from Surrealism to Minimalism, and then Cubism to pop art. This sale examines the evolution of art throughout the 20th century. So please hold on there, and we'll have an opportunity to cover all of the lots featured in the sale, including work by the celebrated Spanish artist Pablo Picasso, Joan Miró, Alexander Calder, Robert Motherwell, Ken Price, and more. Our sale is scheduled to start closing at 5 p.m. And so with that, we are going to start We are going to start covering the lots for the 20th Century Art sale. We're now getting close to start closing. So let's first, start by the very first lot by American artist Alexander Calder. This is entitled Composition 10 in Roman numeral from the Elementary Memory series. This artwork was published in 1976. It's a lithograph in colors on wallpaper. The sheet size is 20.5 by 28 2/5 of an inch. It's an edition of 100, signed and numbered in pencil on the lower margin. And the condition overall is excellent. No condition issues to note. This is the full sheet. And there are no creases or toning or foxing of any kind in the whole sheet. So please feel free to take a look at the work. And just a few more seconds. And that's it. Now moving on to lot number 2, also by Alexander Calder. This is composition 1 from the Elementary Memory series. The specifications of this work are very similar to the one just covered because they're all from the same series. Same sheet size and same publication year. So maybe we can talk more about the composition itself. So these are very iconic shapes by the artist. The artist was well known for drawing inspiration from the life of the circus, and that's why we can see all of these very brightly colored shapes in a lot of his print works. He usually goes for the palette of primary colors, as we can see here, although the palette here tends to be a little more on the warmer side of the spectrum. I should also mention that this series in particular is quite celebrated. from amongst all of the series that the artist has available as far as print work is concerned. It's very representative, and I'm sure this will be a very good addition to any collection. Not just because of the condition the work is in, but also because of the actual quality of the work. Just a few more seconds to go. We'll now open it up to the floor. And the lot is closed. So now moving on to the next lot, Alexander Calder. Again, composition number 6, this time also from the Elementary Memory series. Again, the composition is very iconic for what Alexander Calder is all about. Bold colors, very well-defined shapes, mostly geometric. And here, volumetric, we see a lot of pyramids in the composition, a lot of yellow, very basic shapes for the most part. Maybe we can draw a connection between the artist's mobiles, which is what the artist is really most well known for. Mobiles were designed to be moving or kinetic sculpture. So that was the first attempt in that scale of a kinetic sculpture. So essentially he wanted to envision something that would move, that would change over time, mostly due to the conditions of the environment. All of these mobiles also tend to feature very bright colors and shapes with curves. So we can see clearly the imagery of the art is also present in this series of prints. We have a few more seconds on the clock. And moving on to the fourth lot. Now we have Marc Chagall. The title of this work is The Descent Toward Sodom. This work was published in 1956. It is an etching with watercolor on artist vellum paper. The sheet size is 21 1/10 by 15 2/5 of an inch. It's an edition of 100, and the work is signed and numbered in pencil on the lower margin. This is a biblical image, as you can probably see, angels with color. The work is very characteristic of Marc Chagall. Marc Chagall, like many other artists, drew heavily on biblical stories. So now we're looking at the descent toward Sodom. Sodom as in Sodom and Gomorrah. The work is predominantly in a gray tone, and then it has some accents in color, as you can see. That is not characteristic of the artist, so in that way, for seasoned collectors of the artist's work, could be a very good and interesting addition to their collections. And then the biblical subject matter also makes it interesting just of itself. We have a few more seconds on the clock. The estimate for this work is $5,500 to $7,000. And moving on to the next lot. Number 5, also by Marc Chagall. the French-Russian artist. This work is entitled Bouquet with Bird. It was published in 1960. It is a lithograph in colors on Arches wallpaper. The sheet size is 19 3/10 by 13 4/5 of an inch. This is an edition of 75, and it is signed and numbered in pencil. This work, in contrast to the previous, is very colorful. We can see the brushstroke effect scattered throughout the whole plate. The choice of paper in this case is a good one because Arches paper is a porous kind of paper and mostly suitable for backgrounds that are very rich in color. So this work, as you can clearly see here, is heavily saturated in color. So it is a good choice for this work in particular. The imagery is also characteristic of Marc Chagall. We can see a face and a bird, probably a dove, with flowers. The palette is very limited, and this work has an estimate of between $7,000 and $9,000. We have a starting bid of $5,500. So now we have a few more seconds on the clock. Two seconds, one, and the lot is closed. Moving on now, we move on to lot number 6. This is Salvador Dali, Spanish Surrealist artist. The title of this work is The Flight of Satan from the Earthly Paradise series. This work was published in 1974. It is a dry point in colors on Lana wool paper. The sheet size is 22 by 17.5 inches. This is a rather large edition of 225. And the work, as you can see on the picture in our website for the catalog entry, is signed and numbered in pencil on the lower margin. The condition of the work is excellent. As you can see, this work is a full sheet, and there are no condition issues to note. There's no foxing or toning or even creases or bends to be noticed anywhere in the sheet. The estimate for this work is between $2,000 and $3,000 with a starting bid of $1,500. The composition itself is of a sketch type of work. There is not much coloring in the work, mostly just the contours of the shapes. In this case, well, the depiction of Satan, the angel, the fallen angel, as we can clearly see in the composition. We have a few more seconds to go, just under 6 seconds. The lot is closed. We now move on to lot number 7. In this case, we have Joan Miró. The title of this work is Joan Miró and Catalonia. This work was published in 1970. It's a lithograph in colors on Arches wallpaper. The sheet size is 14 4/5 by 21 7/10 of an inch. This is an edition of 160. It is signed and numbered in pencil. The condition of this work is excellent. As you can see, this is the full sheet and there is no toning or creases anywhere to be seen on the sheet. The work is currently unframed, in very good condition, and it's very representative of the signature style of the artist. Lots of black and the signature palette of the artist: red, blue, green, and yellow. This is an iconic type of work where the shape is all concentrated in the center of the sheet, instead of being more of a pattern-like or even landscape type of composition. We have a few more seconds on the clock. And that just ended. Moving on to lot number 8, also by Joan Miró. In this case, the work is preface from 52 Affiches series. This work was published in 1963. It is a lithograph in colors on artist wallpaper. The sheet is 25 2/5 by 18 9/10 of an inch. This is an edition of 125, and it is signed and numbered in pencil on the lower margin, as you can clearly see in the photo listed in the catalog entry. This type of imagery is not characteristic of Joan Miró, which might be of interest to the more seasoned collectors for the artist's work. This work is one of the most famous surrealist artists to come out of Spain from the modern period. This work is not representative of a surrealist type of imagery. This work is actually quite abstract and irregular in a way, and the palette is also not characteristic of the artist. So something a bit unusual, really, for the artist. This work has an estimate of $5,500 to $7,000 with a starting bid of $4,500, and the condition is very good. The work is currently unframed, and there is just very pale and obtrusive staining, on all margins due to previous framing. We're now getting close to the close of this lot. So now we're moving on to lot number 9. In this case, we have Pablo Picasso. This is Vieux beau salutant prébat un pupille de la Célestine. This title is in French. Essentially, we have admirers of the Celestine. Celestine is a character that is featured in a lot of works, especially print works by Pablo Picasso. A Celestine is that naked woman that you can see on the bottom left corner of the image. This work in particular is an aquatint on Rips wallpaper. It was published between 1967 and 1968. The sheet has dimensions of 9 4/5 by 12 9/10 of an inch. It is an edition of 50, and it is signed and numbered 22 of 50, so a rather small edition on the lower right. Actually on the lower margin, as the edition number is actually on the bottom left part of the sheet. The condition is very good, and the work is currently unframed. So feel free to check the additional images that we have listed on the catalog entry. And the lot just closed. Now we're moving on to lot number 10, this time by a British artist, Henry Moore. The title of this work is Figures in Snow. This is a lithograph in colors on T.H. Saunders wallpaper. This work was published between 1976 and 1977. The sheet dimensions are 19 and 4/5 by 15 and 7/10 of an inch. It is an edition of 75, and the work is signed and numbered in pencil on the lower margin. This work does include imagery that is very characteristic of the artist. He's mostly well known for works that are very organic in shape, lots of curves, no sharp edges or angles. In this case, the work depicts 3 different types of figures as they are characteristic of the artist. The work is currently unframed and in excellent condition, with colors fresh and bright. This work has a very conservative estimate of between $2,500 and $3,500, with a starting bid of $2,000. So we invite all of our viewers to please go online and see the work for yourself. Even look at the specifications more in detail. Those are all available for you in the catalog page. We have a few more seconds on the clock. Just a little over 10 seconds. And the lot is closed. Now moving on to lot number 11, also by Henry Moore, also in a slightly darker palette, grays and blacks. In this case, the title of the work is 3 Seated Figures with Children. This work was published in 1973. It is a lithograph in colors, also on T.H. Saunders wallpaper, which is not a porous paper. It's actually the opposite to a porous paper, which actually allows for the colors to remain very bright and stay and endure a lot better the passage of time. The sheet dimensions are 23 and 3/5 by 28 inches. This is an edition of 75, and this is an artist proof. You can actually see on the catalog entry the AP, which stands for artist proof. The work is signed and numbered in pencil on the lower margin. The work is unframed. It is in very good condition. There is just very pale and obtrusive time staining around the image, but other than that, the condition of the sheet is excellent. The work includes imagery that is very representative of the artist's signature style. Again, these very fluid images represented on the work. We have a few more seconds. And we just close that lot. Now moving on to number 12, in this case by American abstract artist Sam Francis. In this case, this is Untitled SFE 116. Sam Francis was very well known for numbering his works after the Untitled. He didn't quite pay much attention to the title of the work, but instead chose to focus on the actual development of the composition and the color arrangement. This work was published in 1994. It is an etching in colors on wallpaper. The sheet size is 21 by 18 inches. It is an edition of 35, and the work is stayed stamped and numbered in pencil on the lower margin. The work is unframed and in mint condition. It's never been framed, so the colors are fresh and bright, untouched, as you can see there. And the work is actually very representative of the artist's signature style. The artist was what's called a gestural abstractionist artist. He was part of the abstract expressionist movement here in the U.S., and also he was part of the Paris School of Abstractionists in France in the 1960s and 70s. He also spent quite a bit of time in Japan collaborating with a number of master printmakers. We have a few more seconds on the clock. 2, 1, and the lot just closed. We're now moving on to lot number 13, also by St. Francis. This work is called Untitled, between parentheses, Red Down Center, which is pretty self-explanatory if you are to take a look at the actual image. This work was published in 1990. It is a lithograph in colors on PTI 120 waterleaf paper. The sheet dimensions are 46 by 30 inches, so pretty large. It is an edition of 50, which is standard really for St. Francis. And the work is signed and numbered in pencil on the lower margin of the sheet. The work is currently unframed. It's never been framed, and it is in mint condition with colors fresh and bright. This work is characteristic also of the type of composition by St. Francis. It is very abstract, very colorful. The one thing that is not present in this work in particular is the negative space. Usually people associate lots of negative space, or in other ways, untreated areas of the work, leaving them blank. In this case, the sheet is mostly covered with color. And there is really not much negative space to be seen here in the sheet. In any case, this does still fall within a category of work that was produced by St. Francis in the 80s and 90s, where he left very, very little space in the actual working area untreated. So this is a very interesting pick. And that's a close. Now moving on to lot number 14. And in this case, we have a work by Claes Oldenburg, American pop artist, very celebrated, still alive. The artwork is called Apple Core, First State. So Claes Oldenburg was very well known for doing states of his different works, and he usually has 3 states per work. The first state usually being just the outline of the object that he was describing, and then going up to state 3, where he would have essentially the same object but all colored, and probably with a few other details in the actual depiction of the object. So this work was published in 1990. It is a lithograph in colors on wallpaper. In this case, colors is just different gradients of black, as this is essentially a sketch of an apple core. The sheet dimensions are 40 by 29.5. It is an edition of 24, so rather small, and the work is signed and numbered in pencil on the lower margin, as you can see. The sheet has deckled edges, so these are not sharp, not straight, they're deckled, so you can see the actual teeth from when the sheet is actually ripped. It adds a very nice finish to the work, very handmade. The work is unframed, as you can see, and it is in mint condition. And there are no condition issues to note in this case. Let me just, there we go. And that's close. Now moving on to lot number 15. In this case, we have Robert Rauschenberg, American artist, seminal member of the abstract expressionists. Even though he was, he sort of chose to remain outside of the movement. He was an experimentalist also, together with his very close friend Jasper Johns. So this work is entitled LA Uncovered number 1 from the LA Uncovered series of work. It was published in 1998 by Gemini Gel in Los Angeles. The work is a screen print in colors on wallpaper. The sheet dimensions are 20.5 by 20.25, so pretty square. In format, this is an edition of 56, and the work is signed and numbered in pencil on the lower margin. Again, just like was the case with the Claes Oldenburg work, this work has deckled edges, so that means that the edges are not straight, but instead have the teeth, the characteristic of ripping sheet, so you can actually see the remaining fibers there. It has a very handmade finish to the work. The work is currently unframed and in mint condition with colors fresh and bright. This is a full sheet, and as you can see, the colors are very bright and very nice. This is a very characteristic composition of the artist. And that's a close. Moving on to lot number 16. In this case, we have another Robert Motherwell in this case, one of the main names to come out of the abstract expressionist movement, but the second generation of these artists. This work is entitled Mexico City Personage number 1 from the Octavio Paz suite, published in 1988. This work is a lithograph and Shin Applique, which is a very standard old school technique as far as printmaking goes. The sheet dimensions are 26 3/10 by 31 4/5 of an inch. This is an edition of 50, and it is signed and numbered in pencil on the lower margin, as you can see in the picture on the catalog. The work is unframed and in mint condition, with colors fresh and bright. Maybe I can talk a little bit more about the actual technique used for this work. Shin Applique, that usually involves pressing a smaller sheet of a different kind of paper, which is the brownish rectangle that you can see in the picture on top of a larger and more robust sheet of paper. And these are pressed with heat, and that's how the edition is done. The actual image is produced on the thinner sheet of paper that is pressed against the larger sheet of paper. This is a very good example of the artist's work. Very representative, very abstract. Now moving on to lot 17. We have a work by American pop artist Ken Price, pop and conceptual artist Ken Price. The work is entitled Western Sunset. It was published in 1993. It is a screen print in colors on wallpaper. The sheet dimensions are 26 by 20 3/8 of an inch. The edition is 70, and the work is signed and numbered in pencil on the lower margin of the sheet. The work is currently unframed and in mint condition with colors fresh and bright. This is a very good example of the artist's work. The composition is clearly pop. The different areas have a flat color and they're completely filled with the shapes well defined. This is a very unusual view of Los Angeles, and the color palette is also quite interesting. Ken Price is not characterized by his prints, but rather by his sculptures, which are very organic in shape, in a way similar to those by Henry Moore, whom we already covered in the earlier part of the sale. Ken Price's works tend to be conceptual, really, and pop in look, and they usually have some hidden meaning to them. The estimate for this work is between 6,000 and 8,000, with a starting bid of 5,000. So I invite you to take a closer look. And that's the close. Now moving on to the next work. This is a unique work by Alfredo Sabater, Untitled. It is an oil on canvas painting. The dimensions for this work are 36 by 24 inches. And it is signed by the artist. The work is in excellent condition, with colors fresh and bright, as you can see on the catalog description. So we now have a few more seconds on the clock for this work. Just a few more seconds. This is a scene of probably the American West. We can see a horse. And the scenery is clearly of a dry area. Very good composition. Very traditional. I'm sure it will make a good addition to any collection. Now moving on to lot 19. In this case by Phillip Shoemaker. This work is an oil on canvas painting. The dimensions of the work are 30 by 40 inches. It is signed by the artist Shoemaker on the lower right. The work is currently framed, as you can see on the catalog description, and the condition excellent, with colors fresh and bright. I invite you to go to the catalog and see for yourself. We have an estimate of 2,500 to 3,500, with a starting bid of 2,000. In my opinion, very conservatively priced. We now have a few more seconds on the clock for this work. Please feel free to take a second look. A few more seconds on the clock. So we'll now just open it up. To the people on the floor, on the internet. Just a few more seconds. And we're now ready to move on to lot number 20. This work is by Itzhak Tarkay. This is an untitled piece. It is a figurative type of composition. This is a unique watercolor over printed sketch. The dimensions of this work are 36 by 32 inches. It is signed by Tarkay on the lower right. It is currently framed and in excellent condition, as you can see in the catalog entry. The work is characterized by very bright and fresh colors. It's a very nice composition, figurative in nature, very realist. We have an estimate of between $1,700 to $2,300 with a starting bid of $1,200. I'm sure this would be a very fine addition to any collection. For people joining us just now, please know that we're now covering the live broadcast of our 20th Century Art sale, covering a lot of the movements characteristic of the 1900s, ranging from Surrealism to Cubism to pop art and Minimalism. Some of the artists we've covered so far include the celebrated Spanish artist Pablo Picasso, Joan Miró, Salvador Dali, Marc Chagall, Robert Motherwell, St. Francis, and Henry Moore. So that's a close. We are now moving on to lot number 21. This work is by Caruco Wild. It's entitled Almost Cuesta. It is an oil on canvas painting with dimensions 44 by 58 inches. The work is currently framed, and it is signed by Wild on the lower left corner. The work, as you can see, is in excellent condition with colors fresh and bright. And it's a scene of a landscape from above. We can see mountains in the back. Very beautiful. We have an estimate of between $1,300 to $1,400 with a starting bid of $1,200. So I invite you all to take a second look. Please feel free to visit our catalog online, listed under the 20th Century Art sale. We have a few more seconds on the clock for this one. And now coming up, we have lot number 22 by Robert Kem. The title of this work is The Gypsy Song. This work is a watercolor on paper, framed and mounted on board. The dimensions for this work are 16 by 21 inches. It is signed by Kem on the lower left. The work is in good condition, although there is some damage. And we thus invite you to take a closer look to the images included in our catalog entry online. For those of you who are just joining us, we are covering the live broadcast of our 20th Century Art sale. We invite you to please go online to our website, fiauctions.com. Please go to the live section, and inside of the 20th Century Art first band, you'll be able to access the catalog for the sale. We are now covering lot 22. We have a little more time on the clock for this one, so let's just now move on to lot number 23. In this case, we have a work by Frank Hartmann Wagner. This work is untitled, with dimensions 30.5 by 25.5 inches. This is an original gouache painting on canvas. Gouache It's a type of watercolor technique. As you can see, the mixing of colors is very smooth all around. The work is signed by Wagner on the lower right, and it is in excellent condition, framed and matted, as you can see on the pictures, including our catalog listing. We have an estimate of $1,200 to $1,400 for this one, with a starting bid of $1,100. Beautiful image. We have a landscape with a lake and clouds at the back. We now have lot number 24 by Komar and Melamid. These are urban angels. It is a diptych produced in 1991. This is a screen print with metal and gold trim. The plate dimensions are 36 by 28 inches with frame dimensions of 40 by 32 inches each. This is an edition of 35, and this impression here that we're offering is number 21 from those 35. The work is signed on the lower right. It is in excellent condition, as you can see, with colors fresh and bright. This is a depiction of angels with titles on the bottom margin. The left sheet is titled Urban, and the right sheet is titled Angels. This is a biblical type of image, worthy of inclusion in any fine collection. We have an estimate of between $5,000 and $7,000 for this lot, with a starting bid of $4,200. So I urge you to please take a closer look. Feel free to visit our website at flyauctions.com. And inside of the live section of the website, you'll be able to access the catalog for the sale that we're currently covering, the 20th Century Art sale. Now moving on to lot number 25, also by Komar and Melamid, in this case entitled Scenes from the Future. Again, a diptych. This work was published in 1990. It is a diptych screen print. And the pair measures 40 inches high by 64 wide, each sheet measuring 40 by 32 inches. The work is in a gray type of palette. The condition is perfect. And it is important to note that the colors are framed, that the sheets are framed. We have an estimate of between $2,000 and $3,000 for this lot, with a starting bid of $1,800. Very beautiful, denoting a very realist landscape scene. I invite you to please take a closer look in our catalog. Very beautiful images. And we're now moving on to lot number 26. In this case, by artist C. Goulet. This is Untitled, produced in 1991. This is an original acrylic painting on canvas. The dimensions for this work are 32 by 48 inches wide. This work is signed by Goulet on the lower left. It is in excellent condition, as you can see, and it is framed. We have images of the frame in the catalog entry in our website, so please feel free to go online and check the catalog for the sale under 20th Century Art. The frame is a rather minimal frame, very narrow face in natural wood. This is an image of a landscape with a field in the back with stormy skies. I invite you to take a closer look at this. We have a few more minutes on the clock for this lot in particular. We have an estimate of between $800 and $1,000 for this lot, with a starting bid of $700. And we're now moving on to the next lot by Keith Lindbergh. Figurative type of composition. And well, with that, we've covered essentially the highlights for our sale. We still have some other works worthy of being mentioned. Most of these works are figurative, representational, and realist in nature. We do invite you to go online and check the rest of our catalog that is still featured. The works will keep closing with a difference in time of 2 minutes from each other. We have a total of 48 lots in this sale. So we invite you to go online, go into our website at fireauctions.com, go into the live section, and click on the 20th Century Art first band that will allow you to access the catalog for the sale. Again, this was our live broadcast for our 20th Century Art online auction, ending today, April 23rd. We thank you very much for joining, and we hope you will be with us for our next sale, closing on April 30th. And this will be our post-war and contemporary art collection, featuring work by also very prominent artists, some of the biggest stars of the contemporary art period. Just some examples of the works featured in that sale include Luc Tuymans, the Belgian celebrated contemporary artist, Richard Tuttle, Christo, Jean-Claude, Solowit, Ellsworth Kelly, and much, much more. So we hope you will join us for that sale, and hope you are safe in your homes. And well, all the best for you and your families. Thank you very much for joining.